Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to give folks just a minute to enter the virtual learning space and get comfy. We are so thrilled that you joined us today. Great to see some familiar names. So welcome to those of you who've attended a Kale or a Dantes event in the past, and also a big welcome to those of you who are new to either both or one of our organizations. This collaboration has been a work of love, and we are excited to bring this to you. I know that folks are still trickling in, and often we're going from meeting to meeting. Because we have a lot of information to cover, I'm going to get started. Welcome on behalf of Kale and Dantes. My name is Carolyn Swabeck, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement here at Kale. And so my role is focused on member engagement and creating dynamic and experiential learning opportunities for our members. Thank you so much for joining us for our Kale Learning Days. This is our two-part series in collaboration with Dantes. Dantes is the Defense Activity for Non-Traditional Education Support. Dantes has been providing education and career planning programs at no cost to actively serving U.S. service members, including those in the National Guard, Reserve components, and the Coast Guard for 50 years, as of July 31st, 2024. So this is a big year for both of us because we're both celebrating 50 years. Dantes manages a portfolio of programs and products that help more than 600,000 service members reach their personal and professional education goals annually. And so today we are focusing on empowering service members to pursue their education journey. Today we'll explore resources to aid service members to prepare them for their education through a number of programs that you'll hear about soon. And so with that, we can move to the next slide for just a few housekeeping items. Great. So as you can see, this is being recorded. We will be sharing this publicly on both of our websites and YouTube channels. We would love an introduction, so let us know who you are and where you're joining from. In the chat, you can drop your name, your role, your institution or organization. And we also love lively conversation, so please add comments and reactions as we go. It's really helpful when feedback is limited in the virtual space. And we'll also be collecting questions. There is a Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. So if you have questions, try to put those in the Q&A so we can collect them and organize them, and we'll answer as many as we can. Next slide, please. So on behalf of Kale, again, welcome. We are celebrating our 50th year as well. And for 50 years, Kale has been committed to this vision of ours that every adult can navigate lifelong learning and career pathways that fuel economic mobility and community prosperity. And we achieve this through our mission, which is to engage with educators, employers, and community leaders to align learning and work so that adults achieve continuous long-term career success. And we can put a link in the chat just to let you know a little bit more about why we do our work. And on the next slide, just a little bit more about us as an organization. We are a nonprofit membership organization with over 5,000 members across the US and internationally, which span colleges, universities, all post-secondary education, as well as workforce development providers, employers, nonprofits, public and governmental departments and offices that focus on adult and post-traditional learners and workers. And we advance this mission by providing expertise, resources, and solutions to promote and support improved pathways for adults looking to bridge education with a career. So very much in line with Dante's focus. And with that, I'm excited to introduce my wonderful colleague, Doug Heckman, Vice President of Partnerships, who has been working closely with me and others on our renewed focus and initiatives on the military-connected learner and worker. So over to you, Doug.
Hi, everybody. Great to see so many people joining us this morning. And a huge thanks to Carolyn and our friends at Dantes for helping to organize. I remember that I think this idea came up during a community of practice meeting that we had. We've been working with higher education institutions in Illinois for the last year. And I think this idea stemmed from one of those conversations that we had with those representatives there. So I'm thrilled this is finally, coming to happen today. So Carolyn talked a little bit about what CALE is, and I think it's important that we remember how we do that work. CALE always approaches our projects that we entertain and work on with a ecosystem approach. I think most of you would agree that very few problems can be solved in this very complex workforce arena without multiple partners taking part of the projects. And so we're always thinking about how to bring together the different sectors of that workforce ecosystem. So we work with higher education, of course. We've been doing that for 50 years, but we also work with workforce organizations, including workforce boards and organizations like Goodwill and Boys and Girls Club. We work with a lot of employers and industry partnerships, because at the end of the day, we want to help people get a job or a better job. And we also work with chambers of commerce and other city and state governments. So we're always thinking about how to link and connect the dots. And I think today is a great example of that, of bringing in Dantes to provide information to you all. And from what I'm seeing in the introductions, you're coming from all sorts of organizations, including higher ed and CBOs and state and city governments and chambers. So this is just really exciting. We'll be doing the same thing in our national conference in New Orleans a little bit later this fall. I hope many of you will be able to attend. We'll be having a special military breakout during that time to again bring together those of us who really care about the veteran population and their families. So that's a little bit about CALE. Do I have another slide, or are we moving on to introducing Gina Perry?
You have one more slide, though.
Okay, you're not done with me yet. Oh, so I kind of talked a little bit about this, but CALE has a long history of working with the military-connected population. I will say that Carolyn and I, late last year, started thinking about what else can we do? Like, can we have more of a refined focus on the military population? So we put together a strategy plan for the next few years, and we're thrilled when the executive team at CALE gave us 2 thumbs up on us pressing forward with that. So we're kind of at the beginning stages of this, but we're really thrilled about the work that we can do with all of you around supporting this population. We don't want to step on any toes. We don't want to assume that we have all the answers, but we do think we can provide some value, and a lot of that is around helping to connect the dots like we're doing today. So with that, I want to introduce and hand it over to the actual stars of the show, and that's Dantes. And I'm going to introduce Gina Perry, who is on our military advisory team. She's been a long time friend of CALE. I will hand it over to you, Gina. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. My name is Gina Perry, and I'm proud to serve as the Chief for Dantes Credit for Prior Learning and Data Analysis Division. I've been a CALE member and ambassador since 2020, and have appreciated the opportunity to connect with CALE members, community leaders, and leaders within the higher education space. I've also found tremendous benefit from the research provided through CALE, particularly as it relates to the military connected learner. So Dantes is excited to bring you today's training. We're coming to you from Pensacola, Florida. We want to share information with you about our programs that can help you in your work with the military connected student. Now, as Carolyn mentioned, can we go to that next slide? She mentioned that our programs help service members gain the knowledge they need to achieve their educational goals, advance in their military careers, and successfully transition to the civilian workforce at the conclusion of their military service. It's often said, and I agree, that service members are the best trained workforce in the world. They're also very interested in pursuing their education. Carolyn mentioned that last year, nearly 600,000 service members participated in our programs. I'm very proud and humbled by that fact. One thing I would tell you is that this is voluntary education, so it is done off duty. And the dollar value of the time that service members dedicate to their voluntary off-duty education has been measured in the billions. It's significant. So on the next slide, I'm going to highlight our programs and our focus areas for today's webinar. So here it is. It's what we call our pathway to success. And it's really all of our programs set in a relatable ready, set, go framework. Thinking back on our childhood, ready, set, go is something that we're very familiar with. And so it's a touch point for us as well. So the Get Ready programs help service members prepare for their academic journey by bolstering their academic skills and helping them chart their path forward. Get Set programs help service members earn college credit for their knowledge, training, and experience. Our Go programs help service members take action, whether it's providing access to TA-authorized schools, helping them find the right school, or getting them ready for their deployment overseas. Today, you're going to learn directly from the experts, the program managers for the Get Ready and Get Set areas. And so let's turn to the next slide. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Mariba Mack, Dantes College and Career Readiness Career Planning Program Manager, and Ms. Beth Austin, the Program Manager for Dantes Military Training Evaluation Program. These two are DoD subject matter experts. They're responsible for the planning and the delivery of critical vol ed programs for service members across the globe. Now, if you'll turn to the next slide, we're going to begin our discussion with the college and career planning programs to include academic skills training and Cooter Journey. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mariba to show you her programs, walk through her programs, and how they help service members get ready for their educational journeys. Thank you.
Hello and good morning to everyone. I tried starting my video, but I don't see my face. I'll keep it on start video and hopefully I'll pop up so that you all can see me and put a face with a name. It is an absolute joy to be here with you this morning. As Gina did such a kind and gracious introduction, my name is Mariba Mack. I'm a program manager there at Dantes. I am thrilled to see so many academic institutions in here today, community colleges and universities. I do have a background in both of those arenas, although I have been back in the federal government for like the past 8 or 9 years. And then even prior to that, I was in the United States Air Force. So this is my world, and I feel thrilled to see so many people from institutions that I recognize and appreciate you for supporting my education while on active duty, as well as those members that are seeking out education these days. So good to see you. So let's get going here. Let's talk about something really important. One of the programs that we offer there at Dantes is called the Academic Skills Program. I'm sorry, next slide, please. It's called Academic Skills Training Program. You'll also hear us refer to it as OASK, which is an online academic skills course. So basically with this course, the thing that it does is it prepares our service members to get started with their learning. They can use the academic skills program at no cost to them. Within the program, they will be able to take a set of tests, pre-tests, if you will, and then their scores will be measured, and then they'll be recommended or prescribed courses to help them bring up those skill sets. So why is that so important? One of the things that it can do on a fundamental level is just get students excited again about learning. You know, as you all know so very well, we're dealing with the COVID generation. These service members and students, they have been out of, some of them lost a couple of years from the classroom due to the national pandemic that we have all struggled through. So academic skills at a minimum can get them at least excited about learning again, to kind of let them know where they are and let them know what they have to do to get to the next level. So in doing that, it can also prepare them improve their test scores. So there'll be times where service members may have to take a TABE test or a placement test to determine where they are level-wise. And if they do the academic skills training course, there's a great likelihood that they can dust off some of those old skills and land directly into college level classes, as opposed to remediating, which, you know, is helpful and beneficial. But if they can advance beyond that stage, that'll help them get further quicker and also save them funding. Next slide, please. Okay, so within, oh wow, I apologize. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, all righty. So within the AST program, the program is online. It is self-paced, meaning that service members can do it at their own leisure. Or if you have like a lab or something set up within your learning environments, they can come and do it there. And so, you know, they can do it asynchronously, meaning they can do it on their own at their leisure. So it can go out in order to get them prepared for the academic skills training program. They will need to register at DANTES. Once they do that, they'll receive a code that will allow them to log all the way into the system, and there they'll take a pre-assessment exam. And it's basically diagnostic exams with a bunch of fundamentals worked into it. Once they've completed that pre-assessment, Peterson's will use what's called an academic predictor based on the test scores from their pre-assessments. And then it will show what all they need to do to get to a successful level in the post assessment. So that's all done functionally within the program. And then once they take the post assessments, they'll be given an opportunity to receive a certificate of proficiency, which can demonstrate, you know, to them, most importantly, and to academic institutions that they are at a level of proficiency. Also, military members can use that as a document to put in their work folders. It looks good upon their energy and their aggressive conduct towards being professionals in their skill sets. So it looks good to have it as a part of their military education record as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so the program, by saying that the academic predictor will tell them precisely where it is they need to go and what they need to do, all of that is just based on adaptive learning. So within the adaptive learning environment, these service members will have the test questions that are directly mapped to learning objectives. So based on their pre-test, they'll get questions directly linked to their learning objectives for their post-test. It's all of the content within the program is linked to learning objectives. The results will identify where the areas are lacking. So in the event that service members are lacking in a specific area, they are given remedial tasks to help them overcome that lack and get to a level of success. Now, they are allowed to take the pre-test more than once, but it's not necessarily that something that we kind of encourage, because they're not trying to beat the pre-test. They're trying to challenge themselves to successfully and safely get over to a level of full understanding. But I've been in environments where service members will try to take it and retake it and retake it. And it's kind of like, in a way, kind of like missing the point. So although it is a thing that is allowed, it's not something that I inherently suggest or recommend. Next slide, please. Okay, so built right into the Peterson's program, there are a number of tools that are used to help service members achieve a level of success. So the vehicles of instruction are their lesson plans, guided lesson plans that are given. Their videos, like 2.5-minute videos that they can watch to kind of refresh their memory and play them as many times as needed. Animations are included, flashcards, which I find very useful because they're even able to download them and use them even when they're not necessarily in the program. For the math section, they're given pre-printed formula sheets to save them the frustration of trying to go back to high school or wherever they left off with instruction and recall that. So the formula sheets are included. So they're quizzes and practice tests all built within the program. Service members, as I mentioned earlier, are able to do it asynchronously, but they can also use our mobile app, which is very useful for our service members who are deployed or expecting to deploy and may not have access to internet connection. I know that seems like days long gone, but it is something that is still very real for our service members. So we do have the app for their download. Thank you for the slide. Next slide, please. So this is something I wanted to talk about. There's one of the new features, probably about the last 2 years, that's incorporated within the OASC is the Tutor Me option. It is a live tutoring option. Service members can log in, and the estimated wait time to get a live tutor on the line is like 57 seconds. And there are tutors available to cover all of the subject matters from the online academic skills course. Those people will sit online with them and walk them through any areas that are difficult. And there's even a component that's most helpful. They have a writing lab. So if your service member is being challenged with some writing English deficits, if they need to do a writing sample, for example, they could do a writing sample and provide it to the writing lab, and there's someone there that will critique that writing and return it to them within a 24-hour period. So we do capitalize on the use of the Tutor Me feature. As educators and administrators and facilitators of all the programs in all the schools, this may be something you all want to sign up for yourselves if you have like a military credential, and just see it for yourself how it works live. The Tutor Me feature is very surprising and most helpful, and the service members can record that session in case they need to play it back. So I definitely want to speak about Tutor Me. Next slide, thank you. Okay, so along with access to the program as an online academic skills course administrator, you will have access to a litany of wonderful training tools. All of the print resources for online academic skills, if you wanted to print them in your office and use them as handouts for service members who may come in looking for guidance or support. Those things are available on the DANTES website. And also we have a litany of training opportunities that just live out on the internet of previous online academic skills webinars that are there, with the program innovators actually guiding the discussion and taking educators and administrators through the program. So you may find some value there to kind of soothe your interest in the program. Wonderful bevy of resources. And of course, we are here for you as well. We are always a click away. Next slide, please. Okay, now at this point, I want to talk to you about a different program that we offer for our service members, and it is called the Cooter Journey program. And what Cooter does is it allows our service members to go in and take a set of assessments to determine, to help them determine what it is they want to do with their futures. I just find it always striking when service members come in and say, hey, I need you to tell me what I should be when I grow up. And while that's a compelling question and a bit of a challenge, that is not necessarily something we like to do. We would like for them to take that opportunity for themselves. Yes, so Actually, I will need to go up several slides to the 2 slides from the previous. I'll tell you when. Thank you. The next one up. Next one. Sorry, I'm down. I'm sorry. There we go. Thank you. Okay. So Cooter Journey is based on the Holland theory of vocational code. So just in the chat, how many of you have seen this illustration before? You all are out in education, out in the field. I'm sure it's probably familiar to a lot of you. Yeah, so that is the background for Cooter. It is based on Holland Code and developed by John Holland in 1959. And also, I think it's important to say that this program has been in our portfolio there at Dantes for 20 years, maybe 21 years. And so it's part of our portfolio and something that's been tried and true down through the years. And I still find it interesting to go through this process with service members. And so the theory states that that people basically fall within the 6 personality types. And those types are the realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. And so when service members go through the process of doing those during the Cooter Journey assessments, they are basically placed into two of these 6 categories to help narrow down what their future outlook could possibly be, just based on their strengths and their inherent responses to the assessment questions. And so the people that fall into the realistic category are people that tend to be assertive, competitive, interested in activities that require motor coordination, skill, and strength. Investigative are the people that are just natural thinkers. And while I'm going through this, I want you to think about the people that you know personally that fall into these categories, because once you're given this structure, you can kind of see it offhand, especially for people you know very well. So thinkers are people that like working with ideas and concepts. And then there are people that fall into the artistic category. And those individuals like to do things outside of the box. And so they're a little bit more artistic and creative, and you'll find a lot of our actual, you know, artists, creators that fall into that category. And then the social are the helpers, people who like to serve and help others. I hope everyone in this chat, everyone that's in this webinar, this Zoom, can raise their hand on that one, because you have to have a bit of that in order to do what it is we do in support of our future, right? And then there are people that will fall within the enterprising category, and those are persuaders, people that like to lead people, have excellent social skills as well. And then there are the conventional personalities, the organizers. People are accurate and methodical. They like for things to be done on time, and they strictly adhere to rules and regulations. Yes, when I say that, I'm seeing several of my phenomenal colleagues when I say that out loud. Next slide, please. Okay, so what area do you think military, just put it in the chat, which area do you think military personnel inherently fall into? Okay. Conventional, yeah, we get conventional a lot, social and conventional. Yeah, those are our normal responses. But it may surprise you, service members come in as enterprising, and that's us as a collective. All of us as a collective come in more so enterprising, and then following that, investigative, social, conventional, realistic, and artistic. And so, I just think it's interesting to see that as a collective, we do come in as enterprising. And I can say from my experience, while on active and post active, from what I see amongst the troops now, I can see that to be true. We are a collection of people that can really do anything. So, so part of uh, the benefit of employing the Cooter journey is that it can help service members get organized and help them make a smooth transition. We want to make sure that they get into their educational opportunities and their career expansion opportunities as early as possible, as early as their career will allow for it, and that they revisit it often so that when it is time for them to leave, that they have some sort of plan together. So by employing the Cooter journey for the service members, it will allow them to just get started in one nice, concise place. They will also gain plenty of insights from the experience. It will give them reliable results. And with the Cooter journey being so well researched, it's been around for a long time. And so that can give them the confidence of the accuracy and validity of whatever it is uh, that they are going to pursue going forward. Yes. So I apologize again. Can we go down to the next section, please, and pick back up where we left off there? I managed to get those slides out of order. I apologize. Down. Yes, thank you. Okay. So, oh, I'm seeing questions over here in the chat. I apologize. I will come back and take care of those, okay? Bear with me, please.
Don't worry, Marie, but I've been capturing them.
Okay.
So we'll
Okay, sure.
We've
Oh,
got
golly, you all are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So, in order to get started, I've given you a little background on Cooter and why it's such a good opportunity for service members and the ways in which, they'll benefit from using it. But now in order to do it, they'll need to register on our website. We have a special link on our website that is just for our military service members on the Dantes website. Cooter provides a special version of this program to us, but they are a world-renowned company that provides Cooter services to many top industries. So, if you ever doing research on the company, they alone, you're going to find that they are internationally known and award-winning. They're awesome. But for us, they have a special version that they've catered and tailored to the military. So once they've registered, the service member will need to do 5 simple steps. And basically, they will take an assessment. And based on those assessment results, they will be directed deeper into the program to explore some of the careers that are connected to their assessment results. Once they have gone through that process, then they can start planning for that career. And what I mean by the planning step, that's probably the most important step because we not only want people to be in careers that match their personality types, but there are other needs that have to be met as well, as far as salary requirements and where is the job being offered? Is there an emerging field where that job is being offered? We don't want to just send them out into the world with some arbitrary mission to go find this work. Through the planning phases, they are offered an opportunity to see what all goes along with the career. And also, I would like to mention that Cooter, all of their information is drawn from the reputable sources, all of the BLS.gov, all of the government based data sources. It's not just the sources that they've compiled in-house over the past 60 years, because it's been around for a long time. But their information comes directly from the federal government based information sources. So once they have gone through with that plan and they can see what it looks like, then there's an opportunity for them to search through the academic institutions right there within the Cooter Journey system. And they can search right there for which schools offer what they're looking for, which schools will align best with their GI Bill benefits, and help them narrow down the school by region and things of that nature. It gets really down to a granular level to kind of help service members stay focused, and give them some realistic responses to what they're interested in doing. So, the benefits to the service member are endless. They are given a no cost opportunity to go into a world renowned program, uh, based, very well based in research, been around for a long time. And what Cooter does for the service member that does enroll in that program is they're given lifelong access to it. They're given lifelong access to the assessments that they have taken within the Cooter Journey system. Because say if you have a service member that's taken it, early on in their career, and they've gone on to separated, now they're, post-military, they may want to go back and take it again to see where they've grown and how they've changed and how life has changed them. I'll say that. um, there's also a handy resume builder incorporated into Cooter Journey. What you get with service members a lot of time is we have a really good uh, understanding of how to speak like military professionals. But when it comes to converting that into civilian speak, it can be kind of overwhelming for service members. So there's a resume builder in there, a template that asks them some of the fundamental questions about what they've achieved in their military careers or other employment experiences, and it compiles that information and organizes it for them. And it kind of takes some of the fear and intimidation off of it being, starting from scratch. Um, and for service members that go in searching for career opportunities, Cooter even has a feature where they can search based on their military training codes. So, for the Air Force, it'd be their uh, uh, AFSC, from the Army, whatever they did in the military, there is a code associated with it. And so if they don't know how to convert their military jobs into civilian speak, they can put those codes into the Cooter Journey system and it will direct them. So that's a handy tool. And there are also financial aid resources that are available that will direct them to you all. I see a few people from financial aid in here. Welcome, welcome. It's a very important, difficult job. And also, like I said earlier, college and university search is helpful to help them narrow down what's available. And then lastly, there's a segment in Cooter that helps them prepare for the interview and a job search with some interview questions based on the fields that they're studying in, or the fields that they aspire to work in. And so those are helpful tools that they can download and use for practice, if you will. Next slide. So for our people out in the field who serve in the role of recommending or administering the Cooter Journey, the service members will provide you with, again, unlimited training opportunities. There's a database that's available where we can print results for your base, but you have to route that through me and I can get it to you. The Cooter team, they're phenomenal as well. They have live support 24/7 if you run into something and we're not available to you immediately. And we have marketing and materials that can be downloaded from the Dantes website for printing so that you can use at your education events or circulate out in your offices. They're handy dandy on the Dantes website. All right, next slide. Okay, well, I am thankful for the opportunity to take you through both of the programs. I apologize for not tracking over here the questions, but I'm happy to go back and we'll do them one by one. Carolyn, thank you for capturing those for me.
You are so welcome. So I'm going to start as they have come in. And so our
Okay.
first question is from James, who asks, what are the eligibility requirements for a higher education institution to become a testing/learning center? That's part one. So I'll let you answer that, and then I'll get to part two.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Yes, we do have uh, uh, a program manager on our team that handles national testing centers. And that gentleman is on Gina Perry's team. I will definitely, I'm going to put together an email and I will copy Matt for you. And Matt will definitely provide you with everything you need to know about NTCs. He is an expert, and I think he'll be briefing on the second day of the Kale Learning Days. So, but prior to that, I will get a response. I'll get you connected with Matt.
Fantastic. And would Matt be the
Uh,
best route to apply for approval to be a testing center?
Yes, indeed. Matt is the expert. He will give you the most up-to-date details on that, and he's consummate professional. So you're going to be well taken care of in that vein. But I'd be happy to start an email and just copy my colleague on that.
Awesome.
You'll find him wonderful to work with.
Yeah. And we can make sure to include that in our follow-up. When we send out the recording and slides, we'll make sure to have his contact information in there too.
Definitely.
Uh, next question is from Wendelin, who asks, who would be considered an administrator on the Cooter/Dantes portal?
That would be me for Dante's. I would be an administrator. Are you trying to establish an account? Are they able to speak, Carolyn, or no?
They are. So
Okay.
Wendelin, let me
I'm
myself.
sorry. I'm not trying to confuse you
No,
out there. Mhm.
let's get clarity on these questions. So Wendelin, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to talk if you want to add a little bit more context to your question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And really, I was just clicked onto the website, and you mentioned in terms of creating an administrator's website, and I
Uh-huh.
was there was someone at an institution who was typically the person who would be that administrator.
In this sense, it's going to be, I will be able to give you access to the administrator account once you get established in the system.
Okay.
And so if you go ahead through, I'm sorry, on the Cooter website and register.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome and welcome aboard. You will enjoy the experience of using Cooter. It's a fun program and it's something that I do for myself, over every other year or so, just to keep myself updated on the ways in which I've changed. So you'll see your own growth and development in there. It's fun.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Wendelin. And thank you, Mariva, for answering these questions. The next is from Cheryl, and I think this is referring to the Cooter journey and the fact that it's available at no cost over a lifetime to service members. And just clarifying, is that available to retirees as well?
Absolutely.
All right.
Mhm.
Fantastic. And then I did see a question pop in the chat from Mark, so I'm going to go over there for a second. Mark asks, are there any restrictions who at a college or university can register for a Dantes account and administrator in the Dantes Cooter journey?
Once you go in the system and register, we will definitely vet your background and based on where you are, um, your accessibility may be limited depending on what your duties are for that school. But we try not to put out a blanket statement because then that discourages individuals from registering. But every registration is viewed, individually and based on, what it is you do at the school. Uh, your access will be granted in that manner.
Okay. So is there any general criteria you look for, or is it really depend? You do
Well, as a general rule, academic advisors, people that are in the advisement world, that's, who it would apply to. But then I've worked at schools where people do wear three hats. They're an advisor, the financial aid counselor, and the VA certifying official. So again, we may come back and say, what capacity is this role featured at your school? Just to get a clear understanding of what it is you're attempting to do. We want as many people on board as possible, but we have to always act in good faith, and I'm sure you all would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Every institution is different. Wonderful. Well, this is a great question and not a plant at all, but James is asking, who would be the best point of contact for requests to have a similar presentation be given to the Veteran Services Military Regional Representatives and Chancellor's Office for the California Community College System?
Oh, wow, that's a wonderful question. Are you sure that's not a plan, Carolyn?
I swear.
Miss Emily Bachman, she is our director of outreach, and she is behind the scenes, always somewhere behind the scenes. So I'm sure she's on this call. She would be the best POC, and her information will be provided once we get to the end here. Yeah, but thank you for the question, and it's an honor to even hear that request read aloud. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. It really means that this, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the chat. I know you've been presenting, so probably not, but lots of comments of how this is really helpful and just a lot of appreciation for this. So this is
I'm glad to hear that. I noticed that Kelly Crawford, Kelly, are you on the line still? Certified in the strong interest inventory based in Holland. I'd like to hear more about that process. I know we only have a few more minutes, but if Kelly's on the line, I'd just like to hear about that real quick.
Yeah, before Kelly, I see you unmute you for a second, but I did have one more question come through.
Yeah, sure.
Could you talk a little bit more, Mariba, about the writing lab?
Oh, certainly. So the writing lab, there are times when we'll have individuals that are with English being their second language, and they might need an enhancement for their English. And so in needing that, they'll be requested to provide a writing sample. And so those writing samples can be submitted within the online academic skills program to an educator who will review that writing and mark it up and send it back to the student. There'll also be times where service members, they have some learning deficits in just basic English 1 and English 2. And, the prescribed learning objectives within the program may trigger that they need to do a writing sample to close that gap. And I hope that sounds okay. In the prescribed learning, it may say, in order to close the gap on this learning deficit, we recommend that you provide a writing sample. And then they'll provide the service member with a writing prompt. They will answer the prompt, and at the bottom, they could submit it, the draft copy, to the writing lab to look at it and critique it for them. And so I hope that sounds coherent, but it is a huge plus up. And the turnaround period on it is very swift.
Wow, that's amazing. Aaron
Mhm.
also dropped a YouTube link in the chat. That's a great explanation video to kind of support what you're talking about, Mariba. So
Oh, thanks, Erin.
yeah,
Mhm.
what a supportive group of people we have on this call. So I know you wanted to chat with Kelly real quick, and we do have a few more minutes before we go to break. So I just
Oh,
let the audience know we'll be taking about a 10-minute break before we move to the next half of our learning days, just to give folks
yeah.
a chance stand up, get some water, etc. But before we do, Kelly, I'm gonna unmute you and let's talk more about Holland.
Just real quick, Kelly, you say that you're certified. What was that process like, and where did you attend for your certification?
Hi, thanks for asking.
You're
So
welcome.
it's been a long time ago that I was certified. We became certified in our career services office probably about 10 years ago. So the company that did it then does not do it any longer, but it's through the Myers-Briggs company now. So
Right.
yeah, so basically what it is, it's a really intense, and I want to say it took us probably about 8 weeks to do it. It may be different now, but it really takes this deep dive into Holland Code and understanding how to interpret it for our students. And, it sent us through some really amazing scenarios and things that we had to go through. The final test for certification was a huge scenario. So it was really good because Holland Code, I love it. I think it's very valuable. But doing it through this certification process gave us a really good in-depth look at the dimensions of what each of these characteristics in REASIC code are all about,
Yes.
and how we can really effectively help students better understand where they're coming from and then connect them with majors and then careers down the road that are going to be something that they want to do and something that they like to do and that they find that they have the skill set to do.
Oh, that is wonderful. Thank you so much for your input and your words, and kudos on your achievements. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you to the entire audience. You all have been great. The engagement in the chat has been great. I am thrilled to have been here, and I thank you for your time. And I thank you all for the support in the background. You all are amazing people. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And I did just want to clarify, Gwendolyn asked about the administrative database account creation. And Mariba, are you saying folks should email you?
Yes, please. Yes,
Oh,
please. Yep.
okay, wonderful.
And I can just do, I can do a mass if you're interested here. If you're interested in having an admin account for the Cooter Journey, send me an email and then I will mass enroll you all and send you your codes here momentarily.
Thank you, Mariba.
No problem, Gwendolyn. I'm sorry for the confusion there, but I'm happy to just mass enroll all of you and I'll send you your codes.
Fabulous.
Mhm.
I think that's answering a few questions here. So I know Aaron has been busy dropping other helpful supplemental information in the chat. So if folks have missed that, make sure you download the chat if you're able to, which you can do by kind of clicking on that paper that has a corner folded down, and that'll allow you to download the chat. We'll also make sure to download it and share, but there's just so many great links that have been shared and great questions. I want to say, thank you so much to you, Mariba, for giving us such important information. There's such a wealth of resources available, and I feel like we're probably just scratching the surface, right? But there's so many support systems out there for our military service members. So thank you to you and Dantes and everybody at Dantes for all the work that you're doing.
Oh, wow. Oh, with pleasure. Thank you.
Well, at this point, if you want to move to the next slide, I don't see any more questions in the chat, but if there are, please put them in enough time. We're going to take a little bit of a break just because this is, a lengthier webinar. We want to give folks a chance to stand up, get food, get water. And so we will be taking a break. We'll return here and get started. Be ready to get started at 12:10. So maybe get back to your seat at like 12:09 and turn your cameras on. And we will see you all soon. But until then, feel free to turn your cameras and mics off, step away from your screen, and enjoy this little break time before we hear from Beth. So thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you back here in about 15 minutes. All right, I know we have just another minute for our break, but wanted to let folks know that we're back and we're ready. Hopefully everybody's had a nice nourishing break. It's nice to get up and step away from the screen for a second. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around with us. Still so much information to share. Hopefully lots of good questions that we can answer. And it is 12:10. So I am now thrilled to pass things over to Beth Austin, who's the Military Training Evaluation Program Manager at Dantes, to share more valuable information. So over to you, Beth. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Carolyn. So hello, everyone. Welcome back from your break. I'm also, like Mariba, I'm very thrilled to be here. I've known about CALE for many years, and it's truly an honor to be here with you. So let's get right into it. Once service members have taken the steps to get ready by building their foundations with the AST program and Cooter Journey, like Mariba discussed, Dantes has programs to support military members as they get set. What I mean is earn college credits for what they know and what they do. And the program that I'm going to talk to you about today is Military Training Evaluation Program, or MTEP. So just for fun, every time I say an acronym, do a hash mark and let's see how many we have by the end. We love to talk in acronyms, but I will always do my best to spell it out for you. So without further ado, Military Training Evaluation Program, or MTEP. Our mission is to take the knowledge that's gained by service members through formal in-class training or occupational on-the-job training and translate that into language understood and accepted by academic institutions. MTEP helps service members earn college credit recommendations for training and experience from boot camp or basic training through technical and leadership courses. In fact, for the entire duration of their service in the military. These college credit recommendations reduce the number of classes that a service member needs in order to satisfy their degree requirements. And really what you'll hear me say several times is this saves time and money. It also helps the government avoid tuition assistance or TA costs. So all around, everyone wins. The credit recommendations are documented on the Joint Services Transcript, or JST, and I will definitely get into more detail about the JST in a few moments. So to start, I would like to give a thorough overview of the MTEP. So first, Dantes partners with the American Council on Education, or ACE, to evaluate military training and experience at training commands across the country. So we normally, each year, we review about 50 occupations and about 440 training courses per year, give or take a couple. And by the way, course and occupation reviews can take place on site on military installations or virtually. Next, what service members often ask themselves is, first, am I getting the maximum amount of education credit for my prior military training and experience? And second, service members often ask themselves, am I wasting time and money by taking courses that I may already have credit for from a training course in the military? The MTEP program covers enlisted military members, warrant officers, and veterans from all military services. And we also include National Guard and Reserve components and the U.S. Coast Guard. Now, in most cases, the personnel from the United States Air Force, they would reach out to the Community College of the Air Force, or CCAF, for assistance with their academic credit related to their military experience and training. So essentially with MTEP, we want to help save service members time and money. We want to help them succeed in their educational goals. And when we think about saving money, it's not only tuition, but think about the books and fees that are associated as well. And really, MTEP gives them, the service members, the greater capacity to choose the schools that are right for them and to provide the maximum amount of credit for their prior learning experience. All right, next slide, please. Let's take a look at some of the MTEP benefits. So the bottom line, as those of you who are members of CALE know, prior learning assessment, PLA, or credit for prior learning, CPL, or even recognition of learning, ROL, all provide military students with a head start. It's really important to think about how the learning that military members have obtained can support their admissions processes, help meet prerequisite requirements, or even be used as transfer credit to meet course equivalencies. As Gina mentioned in the beginning, the military is the most highly trained workforce there is. So let's give them credit for that. Let's also consider these aspects. When we think about saving time, fewer courses are needed to get to the degree, to get to the credential, to graduate, basically. Fewer courses does mean reduced costs, but think about the fact that MTEP can also help in career planning. MTEP provides a means for competitive advantage in career programs for military members, such as advancement programs, officer commissioning programs, and transition through and out of the military as well. And also, MTEP can support service members as they're developing their resumes. MTEP creates competitive options, essentially. There are more than 2,500 institutions that accept ACE recommended or ACE recommended credits, giving military students the opportunity to find the right institution that will fit their needs and their goals. So regardless of whether military members are looking to save time to degree completion, lowering their cost, or help with career planning, or all of the above, leveraging their prior military experience is one of the most important tools that they can use to help propel them toward their educational success. All right, next slide, please. I want to tell you about two specific service members. So first, on the left, United States Marine Corps. Ken was a U.S. Marine who started and stopped his college degree several times throughout the journey, typically because of competing priorities and operational tempo of the military and the Marine Corps mission, essentially. Military members, as you're probably aware, a lot of times they face 6-month deployments or longer. Sometimes they're in places with limited or no internet access for one reason or another. And also the fact that they move to new duty stations every few years. So now distance learning does relieve that a little bit, but there's a lot of stopping and starting for sure among service members. Some service members find themselves running out of tuition assistance dollars before the end of the fiscal year too. And that was the case with some of Ken's classmates. Now, because Ken's on-base institution accepted a few dozen of his military credits, and even some counted as specific course, such as public speaking, for example. He had some instructor experience, so he got public speaking credit, and even a couple of courses in his major. He did not have to pay out of pocket for courses like some of the others. Ken is now retired. He's my spouse, and as you can see, my family does appreciate MTEP on a personal level. Secondly, on the right, we see the U.S. Navy. When Doug was a young Navy petty officer, he participated in one of those officer commissioning programs that I mentioned. He attended a great university in the South. Upon his selection, his full-time job in the Navy was to go to campus and do well in his courses. And at the end, the result would be that he would be commissioned as a naval officer. Now, during the college admission process, he took his JST, which at the time was called the SMART, the Sailor Marine ACE Registry Transcript. He took what we now know as the JST to the University Veterans Office, and they awarded 45 credits. So as you know, that's 15 classes. They went toward his general education requirements or electives. So this, in the end, allowed him to complete his degree in 3 years instead of 4, saved him time and money, saved the government time and money. In fact, there are officer programs, officer commissioning programs that only allow service members 3 years to complete their degree. So that really highlights the importance of having credit for prior learning, essentially. So I do have to say, Doug is one of our fantastic Dantes coworkers. He tells the same story, so he did give me permission. These stories are not unique among service members. In fact, they're pretty common stories, highlighting the benefits of MTEP and ACE recommended credits. All right, next slide, please. So we're looking at sort of like a factory looking diagram here. I wanted to spend a few minutes helping you understand the MTEP process. How do those credits get to an institution? So first of all, the military services receive a gap analysis report every year that states which of their courses are due to expire, or when will they be up for review again. And the process begins as the military service training commands internally evaluate their courses and occupations for eligibility. Now, it's important to note that we here at Dantes and those at ACE, neither entity is responsible for or is even able to dictate what courses and occupations are reviewed. Now, that's going to come up again later, so try to remember that. I'll quiz you at the end. Course and occupation review requests are initiated and submitted for consideration by the respective military service. And then each service has what we call an SPM, or Service Program Manager. And I'll talk a little bit more about the SPMs on the next slide. Now, once a course or occupation is approved to be reviewed, it's added to the approved master schedule. There are a series of pre-evaluation preparation steps that take place within the military training command prior to the review. We want to ensure that everything's good to go when the ACE team of faculty evaluators arrives. ACE schedules and conducts all course and occupation reviews. Now, to summarize the course review process, teams of college and university faculty members work together to review the course materials and to verify that the courses meet the content, the scope, and the rigor of college courses in their respective fields that they teach in. The decision is based on a consensus of the team. So if there's even one faculty evaluator that does not agree, if they don't all agree, then no credit is recommended. Now, the occupational review, it's kind of similar, but it requires that the service members that are subject matter experts in that occupation, they are actually reviewed by the ACE faculty evaluators. We try to strike a balance. We want to recommend credit where it's due for service members so that those service members don't have to repeat courses unnecessarily, but we also don't want to set them up for failure in a higher level course. So sometimes credit just is not recommended. After a course or occupation review is completed, the command is notified of the credit recommendation, and the information is sent to what we refer to as the military guide. The military guide is essentially a repository that holds course and occupation data. The military guide is the primary source of information that feeds to the JST. Now, if you recall, JST, Joint Services Transcript. It is possible, unfortunately, that entities can engage in what we call data scraping from our websites. And so sometimes, they might try to sell the data or profess that they will award this data, the credit recommendations. So we have to ask, is that data really valid, reliable? Would it be accepted by colleges and universities? There's really no way to tell. So what I'm saying is that the military guide should always be considered the authoritative data source for any external system that uses MTEP evaluation recommendation data. All right, next slide, please. Here you'll see the MTEP working group. So this group was designed and established to enhance program readiness, improve the business processes, and support administrative and policy recommendations. We meet quarterly and focus on how we can make the program and the MTEP process better and better. As a group, we take a collaborative and holistic approach to those tasks at hand. Now, if you'll remember from the previous slide, neither Dantes nor ACE can mandate what courses and occupations are evaluated. Each military service is represented by the MTEP Service Program Manager, who's responsible for ensuring the interest of their respective service is met. So it's important to note, though, that not all military courses are eligible for review. So a few words about eligibility. The course or occupation must fall under the purview of a Service Central Training Authority. For example, the Army has TRADOC, which is Training and Doctrine Command. The Navy has NETC, NETC, which is the Naval Education and Training Command. The courses that are being reviewed cannot include curriculum that belongs to a nationally or regionally accredited institution as recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. So for example, CCAF, or the Community College of the Air Force, is actually a regionally accredited institution. So we do not review CCAF courses. Courses to be reviewed cannot contain proprietary material or intellectual property that is outside of the federal government, or it cannot belong to a non-federal entity. Each course reviewed must have at least 40 hours of engagement or contact hours. Some military courses do contain classified information, so the classified portions must be redacted, and what remains has to be at least 40 contact hours worth. Also, the formal assessments within the course have to be evaluated as well. And if the whole thing is classified, then it just won't work for review. If there are new military training courses, they must have been taught for at least 1 year in order to be reviewed. And I do want to mention that when reviews are taking place and being planned, the focus is primarily on enlisted education. They're the #1 priority to be evaluated. So just in summary, the representative from each service is responsible for covering the interests of their service members and their training commands. A lot of times we recommend that the military personnel and training commands become very well acquainted with their SPMs, their MTEP SPMs, so that they can, work closely to get the courses and occupations reviewed. So on the right side of the slide, you can see the landing page of what we call the MTEP review portal. It's a shared workspace where ACE staff, ACE faculty evaluators, DANTES staff like myself, and the MTEP service program managers can all come in, look at the review master schedule. We have working group resources as well as training guides that can be reviewed. All right, next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit more about the military guide and its features. So DANTES and ACE launched a new modernized version of the military guide as a tool in about April of 2021. Yes, it actually says right on the slide, April of 2021. So why did we need a modernized tool? Several reasons. What we found out from colleges and universities is we needed to make some changes. We needed to make the tool easier for colleges and universities to understand and evaluate the military credit. The previous military guide, through feedback, we learned it was just too cumbersome and too heavily focused on a lot of narrative. And so the new version is much easier to use. We found also that there's a large segment of the academic population that just wasn't using the military guide at all because it was not quick and easy to navigate. People from registrar's offices said they just didn't have time to wade through the old tool. And lastly, we learned that a large portion of schools didn't have a way of tracking military or veteran related credits and credit awards at all. The modern military guide does have that tracking capability. So overall, a better user experience for academic institution. It leads to more degree generating credit being awarded to service members and to veterans as well. So some of the key features, the modernized military guide has a reimagined search and information display experience. It just looks and feels better to the user. There's a feature where there's an automated JST upload and exhibit retrieval for service members. So either school representatives or service members can upload the JST into the system, display it, and then users can click on features for more information like what are the learning outcomes of that particular training and other details that can help schools, institutions make credit acceptance decisions. So in other words, these are dedicated tools to help support schools' work of evaluating military credit, military learning for credit, I should say. Additionally, the military guide provides automated built-in feedback mechanisms to analyze the actual credit awarded based on ACE's recommendations. So the key point to recall here is just that we now have a tool that makes it easier for colleges and universities to evaluate military learning and occupational experience. And again, the easier we make it for you all from schools to use the tool to look at credit recommendations, we think the more likely that more credit will be accepted from for and from service members. And by the way, if a course is reviewed, it goes into the military guide, even if no credit is recommended. We do see at the bottom of the slide a link that Erin has shared or will share momentarily. We recommend that you use this link, go to our YouTube landing site and watch a demo. I think it's about 7 minutes, and it's a tour of the awesome features that that the military guide contains. So after this presentation, please follow that link and take a look. We think you'll like it. All right. So the Joint Services Transcript, or JST. Now, I just want to set the stage by saying that on behalf of the military services and as directed by the Department of Defense Voluntary Education, or VOLED program instruction, DANTES acts as a liaison and coordinates with the Naval Education and Training Command, or NETC, to provide the JST for service members and veterans. So let me clear up any confusion or misconception. DANTES does not own the JST or the JST operations, but we do act as a liaison to help solve policy issues, quality assurance, surveillance, compliance with our contract partner, ACE, or American Council on Education. The transcripts validate service member and veteran occupation experience, training, prior learning, and they contain college recommendations determined by ACE. The JST is really important for our service members and veterans because it provides documented evidence of all the training and occupation experiences that they've had since day one when they joined the military. I think of the JST kind of like the vehicle that delivers ACE recommended credits to you all at the colleges and universities. Because we understand the importance of the document to our service members and to veterans, we're actively trying to identify potential pathways to transform what we know as the current military transcript document into more of like an enabling learner record that records a wide variety of end user interface and transactional capabilities to support a service member's lifelong journey to and through the transition out of military service. What we're thinking about with a future transformed military credit transcript would provide more meaningful and holistic capture of service members' military training, more about their work experience, more about their prior learning, their academic coursework, and all types of professional development achievements. And this, we think, would empower service members and provide also the DoD, Department of Defense, with the data that we need in order to support informed decision-making. There are instructions for any type of user on the JST website, and it looks very much like what you see on the screen here. There are instructions for service members to send official JSTs to institutions or employers. There are frequently asked questions, and there's contact information specific to the different branches of service or military services. So at this point, I would ask that we put up the polling question. I want to see what you all think about how many official JSTs were sent to educational institutions last fiscal year. So we have 3,400, we have 34,000, and we have 340,000. I'll give you a couple of moments to get your vote in. All right, looks like we have about 41 that have voted. This might surprise you. The correct answer is actually C. We had 340,000 thereabouts official JSTs that were sent to institutions last fiscal year. Even more impressive, in addition, around 2.5 million unofficial transcripts were viewed on the JST site by service members and veterans in that same fiscal year. 2.5 million, that's quite a few. We are going to make sure that you all have the JST link if it's not already in the chat. I can't see, and Erin will get that to you. All right, let's go ahead to the next slide. Thank you all for voting. I want to talk just a little bit more about the military guide in terms of the insight and the value. This slide really talks to the complexity that we face in our attempt to improve the Department of Defense, or DoD's, capacity to evaluate, document, and communicate college-level learning from military experience and training. So it can be challenging at times for colleges and universities to align what we do with post-secondary requirements. So we have an obligation to act to ensure our service members and veterans are receiving credit for their experience. But equally important is our role in supporting military mission readiness. This means continuing to contribute to our national defense strategy by cultivating our talent, by recruiting and training a workforce with the skills, the abilities, and the diversity that we need to be able to creatively solve national security challenges in a global, complex environment. One of the major ways that we attract and retain talent is through our career investment programs, such as the Department of Defense Voluntary Education, or VOL-ED program. In fact, I've heard many service members say that educational opportunities, that's one of the primary reasons that they joined the military in the first place. So at the heart of all of this is, how do we get our hands or our minds around the disparity that we see in the credit that's awarded to military members? So what I mean is, we could have two service members with the same credentials, the same degree plans, attend two different schools, and have vastly different outcomes in how much credit was awarded from their JST. It could also be a lot of disparity between the schools in terms of how those credits are applied. So 30 credits, let's say, is it all dumped into general electives, or are there course by course equivalencies awarded? Some of us around MTEP just kind of jokingly say it's like the academic wild, wild west. There's a lot of inconsistency for how the credits are awarded and used in degree plans. The Department of Defense's investment in and recognition of credit for prior learning really stems from the challenge of simplifying the evaluation of military learning and experiences for you all at the colleges and universities. So we think that by making this process easier and providing more information, more insight, more support as you're making those decisions, it really benefits the service members and veterans significantly. The task that we're thinking about is how to figure out how to create an MTEP ecosystem, or sharing of information, that serves to make life easier for academic institutions, easier for training commands, easier for the Department of Defense, and improving the capacity to evaluate, to document, and to communicate college-level learning from military training and experience. We're on the right path in our initial attempt to standardize some of this work with our introduction, as I mentioned, of the modernized military guide, as previously discussed. Something else that's really exciting that's going on, we're currently in the midst of a pilot program with two academic institutions that they both have significant numbers of tuition assistants using service members. So they're very used to, very welcoming to service members, very military friendly, we would say. So this pilot program actually involves data interoperability and exchange. So the institutions would provide us with the data, historical data, on how many credits they typically award from the JST, how they use it within their degree programs, and in turn, they would receive an auto refresh, automatic updates when there are changes to ACE credit recommendations. So that's that exchange that I mentioned. We would love to have more and more institutions involved. So if that perks anyone's ears up a little bit, please reach out and let us know if your institution might be interested in participating as well. All right, let's take a look at the next slide. So I wanted to tell a story. She could even be on this webinar right now or see it later. She'll know who I'm talking about. When I previously worked at a university, I had a colleague at a nearby institution that really cracked the code on how to maximize military credit acceptance at her in an institution or university. She was a veteran herself, and she really understood the military credit recommendation process. She kind of squirreled herself away and did a lot of research and determined what would be the best academic department to start with, what would be the best major to really get involved with at her institution. She became an expert at using the military guide, and then she aligned that information to degree requirements in that initial academic department and major that she was thinking of. So she actually made a physical binder to give to faculty members that explained everything in good detail. She even had an ACE faculty evaluator come out to her campus and sit and talk with the dean and sit and talk with the faculty members there at her institution. And because that worked so well, she replicated that process across her institution. Worked like a charm. Today, in fact, that particular institution does an excellent job with military credit acceptance, and they have a very robust military-connected student population as well as a result. So keep in mind that many military members and veterans, I call it shop. They shop around and see which schools will give them the greatest number of credits from their JST. So it does benefit the institutions to accept military credit. So what you can do to be an advocate for military credit acceptance, I would just recommend becoming familiar with the military guide as well as the Joint Services transcript. Think about the number of credits, the ACE recommended military credits that your institution can accept. And not only that, but how can they work into degree plans at your institution and actually take the place of course requirements. Share the information that you're learning with your institution's administrators and faculty members as well. And it almost goes without saying, reach out to us, contact us for any assistance that you may need. We should have the email address on the slide there for you. We also recommend, please visit the DANTES website and take a look at our fact sheet that we have regarding the MTEP program. Great information is there. In fact, dantes.mil/credit4 training will take you right to this type of information that I'm referring to. All right, let's take a look at the next slide. So when we have the opportunity to speak with groups, especially those from academic institutions, we find that there are certain questions that come up over and over. So we have some frequently asked questions for you today. You heard me mention ACE Faculty Evaluator. Some of you may be interested in participating in that type of activity. So how do you become an ACE Faculty Evaluator? There is information on the ACE website. That's acenet.edu. Faculty evaluators, basically, they're vetted, they're qualified, which in turn makes those reviews validated and deemed viable. Faculty evaluators come from 2-year schools, they come from 4-year schools, and both public and private institutions as well. They're compensated for their time and travel too, which is a nice benefit. All right, secondly, what is the relationship between Dantes and JST? Does Dantes own the JST? Let me ask you, throw it in chat. I mentioned it maybe 1 or 2 times earlier. What do you think? Do you recall? Actually, each JST is owned by the service members and veterans specific branch of service. Dantes is a liaison, so with the JST Operations Center. So what I mean is the Army soldiers JST is owned by the Army, the Navy's JST is owned by the Navy. We are the liaison between the American Council on Education and JST Operations. All right, number 3, how can a service member have JST information corrected? So if a service member or a veteran notices that there's missing information or incorrect information on the JST, we would refer them to the contact information on the JST website for help with correcting the information that appears to be missing or incorrect. So each branch of the military has its own instructions and contact information. Now, let me pose this question to you. I've mentioned this too. Who decides which courses and occupations are reviewed? Does DANTES decide? Does the American Council on Education decide? Each service requests their own reviews. DANTES does not control what's reviewed, and neither does the American Council on Education. Additionally, we have some specific criteria of eligibility which guides what courses and occupations can be evaluated, and I went over those a few moments ago. So we do receive the question, we had this just a couple of weeks ago, does my institution have a military guide account already? We think it's a great idea for academic institutions to have a military guide account and to use the tool as it was intended. So I offer you all my services to help any of you from academic institutions determine if your institution already has an account, and if so, who's the point of contact at your school that is listed in the military guide. I can connect you with those at the American Council on Education that manage the military guide accounts. And we would love for all of you to get engaged with a military guide. And also I wanted to mention that there is a help desk feature on the military guide site. Next, why should we use the military guide if we have our own internal system that tracks military credit acceptance? Institutions still should access the military guide in order to verify information on the JST. So as I mentioned previously, we want to create direct data exchanges with institutions. This robust data would help us better understand how credits are being applied at the post-secondary level within specific degree programs. Why? Well, because it would allow us to improve upon our internal processes, the taxonomies that we use, to assist with degree alignment process, and also to provide better and more targeted support to our training commands. A few moments ago, I discussed the military guide pilot project related to data interoperability and exchange with the 2 academic institutions that's going on this year. And again, if any of you are interested in that, please let us know. All right, the 7th FAQ that we have is, how long is an ACE credit recommendation valid? So in other words, how often is a course or an occupation reviewed? The short answer is 10 years. Now there are cases like when the curriculum vastly changes, the review can be requested sooner than 10 years, and that does happen sometimes. Another case is in those highly technical fields in the military. Those are actually reviewed more often because of changing technology. And last but not least, the 8th FAQ that we often hear is, what's the difference between a course review and an occupation review? I've mentioned those several times throughout this session. In a course or formal training review, the ACE faculty evaluators look at lots of material. So they look at the material used to deliver the content of the course, such as course planning documents, learner outcomes, the number of academic contact hours, the instructor and student materials, and they think through the applicability to post-secondary programs. The ACE faculty evaluators, they also want to validate that the stated learning outcomes are true by looking at the course assessments. You know, how are the service members graded and how are they assessed as part of the course? Now, when we look at occupational reviews, we think about the experience or on-the-job training type of a review. In this case, the ACE faculty evaluators, they look at the official documentation of the military occupational specialty or rating, and then they validate the occupation's critical tasks and the skills by actually interviewing service members that perform that occupation or that specialty. All right, so those are the top questions that we have. And if we could go ahead to the next slide, let's see if you all have any questions for me.
Of course there are, and they're two pretty, I think, circumstantial questions. So the first one came through from Wendelin, who's in the Q&A, asked, I've worked with military who received classified training that didn't allow for sharing of content, which prevented consideration for very competitive programs at 4 institutions such as engineering. What is the best way to work with these students? And are they typically aware that they will most likely need to repeat content at a college for this reason?
I would say generally service members would be aware that their course can't be evaluated in the traditional sense, and therefore, because the JST is the way to get that credit to the institution, they are probably aware that the credit won't move. We can think about other ways to assess their learning, maybe like portfolio, or there really aren't any CLEP exams for engineering necessarily, but yeah, just alternate ways of assessing their learning. Yeah, that would be the best course of action.
Great, thank you. And thanks for that question. And then the second one is from Bren in the chat, who says, a former military member at my school started in one branch of service and then later changed to a different branch of service. Why was their JST reflecting the exit rank of the first service and the service seal instead of the last service served?
Let me think about that. Certainly, it should not be missing. So I would recommend that the service member go to the JST site and follow the instructions on what they need to do to have that information added. I can't think of a real reason why it should not be there. And that's kind of like a flopsy answer, but that's what I would recommend. I would recommend sending the service member to the JST site.
Great, thanks, Beth. And then another question from Bren in the Q&A. If ACE credit recommendations are valid for 10 years, does this mean we really shouldn't accept JSTs that are older than 10 years old?
Fair question. So if we think about, credit recommendations go back to the 1950s. And so things change over the decades for sure. But the way I would think about it is that service member was present and took that training in the 80s, 90s. The answer is no, that I'm getting to. No, I would not limit accepting the credits. So they have that knowledge and they still have it. So I would not recommend limiting the age. Now, I know some institutions do have policies where, if it's any transcript is not accepted that's more than 10 years old. So, that might be your institution's policy. But I would say, no, don't limit. But, I'm a real advocate for military credit.
That's a great answer. Not recommend limiting, but definitely refer to institutional policies to cover this. We have time for one more question that came from Cindy in the chat. But I know that Aaron has also put Beth's email in the chat. So if there are other questions that come up, I know that Aaron, you'll be happy to respond. Cindy asks, if we were in the pilot program for ACE military guide, does this change anything for us? And I'm not sure what the specific thing Cindy's referring to is. I don't know if that's enough for you, Beth, or maybe Cindy, we can come off mute and clarify.
So I'm thinking, as I understand it, Cindy, you're asking what's in it for my institution if we become involved in this pilot program. So instead of having to go out and always look for updates in credit recommendations, part of that exchange of data would be automatic feeds to your institution that would constantly be updated as things change with credit recommendations. So just it's a convenience factor that your institution would enjoy.
Right. So we were in the pilot program. We're in the system as one of the first 13 schools in the ACE military guide where it uploads and does that. Is this completely different or done jointly with that system?
So this is something that's just started this year. So it would be a little bit different from what you what you experienced before. I would have to find the real specifics. I wasn't with MTEP, at that time when I wasn't with Dantes at all when the military guide first came to be. So I would be happy to find those specific details and let you know.
Thank you.
And thank you for that question.
Thanks, Cindy. And I see that, Beth, your email is put in chat. So anybody else who has a question like Cindy's or others, that's a great place to start. And wow, that time flew by. Beth, thank you so much for your presentation and for all of this great information. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to say about this final slide before we wrap things up.
Yes, please note, you will be getting the slides, but please note the many ways that you can connect with Dantes. You'll see our website here, our general email address, our social media, and I also want to plug the Dantes app called MilEd Benefits. This is available for Apple and Android phones, so please download that and take a look. It's pretty fantastic, but I'm partial, but it's a pretty great app. All right. That does it for me. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to Beth, thank you to Mariba, and thank you for all of and Gina, of course, Doug, and everybody behind the scenes that you may not have seen on camera that has been a part of putting this part one together. If you wouldn't mind going back to the slide just before this, just to make sure you all know, you will be, because you signed up for this, you'll be getting an email with the recording, the slides, and all of the links. But they'll also be available on the Kale website and on the Dantes YouTube channel, which is spelled out right there. And then the next slide really is, if you're not a Kale member, we'd love for you to join us because we do things like this all the time. We collaborate with great partners like Dantes to help our members advance their work as practitioners in this adult learner and worker space. And connecting the ecosystem between higher ed, workforce, and employment. So this is just a very brief overview of some of the great benefits that you could receive. As a Kale member, we have a number of different levels and options available to kind of meet your budget and needs, but you get discounts on our conference, discounts on professional development, and then we offer at least monthly free webinars for our members, along with a community space and over 5,000 folks in our membership who are all thinking and trying to solve some of these big challenges. And I learn something from my members every day. So if you're interested, you want to learn more, please email us at membershipservices@kale.org. We'd love to speak with you. And for those of you who are members, thank you so much for being here and for your support. This is a two-part series. So this was part one. We hope you'll join us for part two on October 3rd, 11 to 1 p.m. Eastern time, where we'll be focusing on career resources for veterans and service members. And so you can find, I know we're going to put the registration link in this chat and in the follow-up email. It'll also be available on Kale's event calendar. So please sign up, tell your colleagues, tell your network if they're working with veterans and service members. They won't want to miss this two-part series. It, of course, will be recorded as well. And then, of course, we will be doing a special military breakout at our conference. Dantes will be at our conference. So if you want to chat with these wonderful people, please come to our conference and meet them in person. We have a special military breakout on the Thursday of our conference from 2 to 4 p.m. following a really wonderful keynote by Consuelo Castillo-Kickbush. And so the breakout is focused on joint operations mentality to better support the military connected population. So we'll be announcing that we are launching a national community of practice focused on military connected learners and workers for our members. We will hear success stories in kind of quick fire breakouts, and then there'll be plenty of time for networking and celebration on Halloween. So we'll be in New Orleans. We hope if you're able to, you can join us. It's going to be a really wonderful breakout session, and we can't wait. and we know Gina will be there. And so finally, as we come to the end of part one, again, on behalf of all of the folks who have been part of putting this together, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for the work that you do to support our veterans and service members in their journey. Please let us know how we did. You should get a prompt for a quick survey once you leave this webinar, and we really appreciate your feedback because it helps us improve and it helps us know what we should be thinking about for the next time. So have a great rest of your week. Hope to see you at part 2 and take good care. Thanks, everybody.